You asked me about basically you want to flip a multifamily home, and you're trying to figure out if how you comp that. So you understand how to comp a single family home, but how the hell do you comp a multifamily home? Well, buddy, I gotcha. So when you talk about comping, you're talking about a comparable value. All right. So there's three different ways to find the value of a house, or excuse me, a property with a building on it. Okay. There's comparable sales, which is comps, where you say, okay, well, this house looks like my house. It's in the same neighborhood as my house, similar square footage, similar features, similar, X, Y, and Z. Therefore, it is comparable to my house. So if that house sold for $300,000, if I get my subject property to a similar condition to that house, it will also likely sell for around $300,000. Okay, that's a comp. That is one way to figure out the value. The second way to figure out the value of a property is to say, all right, the land is probably worth, let's say, $20,000. Okay, and the cost to build a new house on this land would be, let's say, $240,000. Okay, so the land plus the building value is $260,000. That property is likely going to be worth $260,000. That's another way that people figure these things out. And then there's a third way. Mostly with single family homes, they use the first way, the comparable value way, which is the way that you guys all know how to find comps. That's how we normally do it. But with multifamily, they use the third approach, which is the income approach. All right, a multifamily home, especially when you get into bigger multifamily, is all about what kind of income they make. Okay, and so if you have a quadplex and each one of the units has a market rent of $1,000 a month, then that building is going to bring you around $4,000 a month. All right, that's how they figure it out. And then you have probably heard of the 1% rule. Okay, so the 1% rule is a quick way to do income math. And the 1% rule says that a house will sell for, or let's think how to say that, whatever. Basically, $4,000 a month equals a property that's worth around $400,000. You know what I'm saying? So if it rented for $2,000 a month, it would be worth $200,000. So the rents should be 1% of its value. That's what the 1% rule means. Okay, that doesn't really apply on houses as much. It does in some areas. Those are the best kind of houses. But anyway, so the income approach. Now, the 1% rule comes because basically there is a thing called capitalization rate, or you've probably heard cap rates talked about before. And a good cap rate is, whatever, like 7 or 8% is a great cap rate on a, B class type of property. And the 1% rule basically breaks down to a 7 or 8 cap. And that's where that whole thing came from. It might be a little bit lower than 7 or 8% capitalization rate, but it's pretty close. And this all came from the time when interest rates were really low. Interest rates now are like 7%. So that cap rate might not be as good anymore. You probably hear people out there talking about it. But anyway, your cap rate formula is, I just want to make sure I get this right. Cap rate formula. Make sure I say it exactly right. Yeah, your NOI divided by your property value equals your cap rate. NOI divided by property value. Okay. Dude, I have terrible handwriting, by the way. All right. So anyway, just like any formula, you can of course figure out then what your property value would be backwards. This equals cap rate. So if cap rate were 7%, and you know your NOI, your net operating income is remember $4,000 a month. Okay, but $4,000 a month is not NOI because you have to pay for property management. You have to pay for, you got to figure in vacancy, you got to figure in maintenance, you got to figure in CapEx, like big ticket items. You have to figure in taxes and insurance. So generally, as like quick math here, I would figure like around 60% of my revenue, the $4,000 a month. Can this still be seen on here? $4,000 a month. I said 40. 4,000 times 60% equals $2,400 a month. That's an NOI, $2,400 a month, right? This is figuring in all those things that I just said. $2,400 a month times 12 months is 4,000, 28,400, 28,400, 28,400. Okay, divided by the property value. So what is 40 or 28,400 divided by 0.07? That's what we're looking for. I'm asking for a friend here. What is 28,400 divided by 0.07?
28,400 divided by 0.07 is approximately 405,714.2857.
Hell yeah. Look at that. 405,710. Which, once again, that's the 1% rule right there. Rents for $4,000 a month, worth around $400,000. So if you have a duplex, each side's renting for $1,200 a month. That's $2,400 a month. Property's probably worth around $240,000. Okay, that's what an investor who's coming to buy it is going to think. Now, there are variations there. Variations might be the wrong word, but anyway, if I have a house in a really crappy area of town, it's like C-class area, I am probably going to want a better cap rate than that. Like there were times like when I first moved out here, there were some like really rough areas of town, and I wouldn't buy if it was anything worse than a 2 cap, or not a 2 cap, but a 2% rule, meaning that if it rented for $4,000 a month, I was buying it for $200,000. Sweet deals. All right. And then there's also the opposite end of the spectrum. If it's in like a really nice A-class neighborhood, you're not going to find 1% rents there. You're going to have to overpay because the value is likely a lot higher. There's more potential to appreciate in those types of neighborhoods. So anyway, you'll have less than a 1% rule there. All right. Hopefully that all made sense to you. Sorry if we got a little in the weeds. Bye-bye. I have no clue where I'm recording this anymore. Oh, here we go.